This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
What's up, everybody? Reggie and Luke back in the lab. Another episode of Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. What's going on, Reggie?
What's up? What's up? That music is, as always,
never gets old.
Got me hyped, man. Got me hyped for Timberwolves today.
Oh, my gosh. Another jam-packed show for you guys. Reggie and I taking a deep dive into tonight's playoff game with the Wolves Grizzlies battling for Game 2, plus a better look at the rest of the NBA playoffs and league's biggest storylines. And, of course, later we play What Does It Mean? I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat, some Twins baseball, some NFL draft. So let's jump right into it. You ask anyone around the league, and they'll tell you Game 1 between the Wolves and Grizzlies, probably the most surprising game of opening weekend as the 7-seed Timberwolves were ready to go into enemy territory. They pull out an upset over the 2-seeded Grizzlies. His first ever playoff game, Anthony Edwards leads the way with the Wolves 36 points, 6 assists. Cat throws up 29 and 13. The Wolves shot 50% from the floor. They won the rebound battle 46-35 over Memphis. Hey, Ja Morant did what Ja Morant does, right, for the Grizz, throwing up 32, 8 assists, but not enough. You know the Grizzlies are going to scratch and claw here, Reggie, tonight, doing everything possible to avoid that 2-0 deficit before heading back to Minnesota for games 3 and 4. So after what you saw in Game 1 and what you know about both these teams, what's your X factor for tonight's game? Who or what is going to be the catalyst in their team's ultimate success in tonight's Game 2?
So for the Timberwolves, look, for me, it always stops and starts at Big Cat. Like, he has to have the type of night that superstars have, because this team comes and goes as he kind of comes and goes. And I think it was cool in the playing game when, you know, your other teammates are able to pick up the slack. You know, you talk about, oh, yeah, it's team ball, you know, whatever. But I think with these games being as important as they are, Cat has to come out and set the tone for how the Timberwolves are going to play that night. And he did that in the last game. I keep saying it, but he came out just so sassy. He came out so sassy in that Game 1 game. And it was just so interesting to see how he kind of just galvanized the team a little bit, and they just kind of went as they went. You know, I think Ant is going to have to continue to be who he's been over the last couple games. And I mean, that's going to be a challenge for him, but he's playing like excited. He's happy to be there. And so he's having fun out there. So I think he's going to continue to shine in his own right, because he doesn't want to get shown up by Ja, you know. And this Wolves team has a lot of pride, and a lot of that comes from Cat's leadership and Patrick Beverley, you know. Didn't really talk about him all that much.
Not much, no.
In Game 1.
Yeah, yep.
But he did what he had to do, and they got the win. And so I think it's going to be tough to get 2 straight in Memphis. Like, that's a crazy place to play. The Grizzlies are going to be more jacked up. They got a game under their belt. And I mentioned this yesterday. Anytime a team scores 117 points, usually you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they probably win that game. The Wolves scored 130.
Wild.
Like, it's crazy. And so, but they needed all 130 of those points. And so I think if you talk about who's going to be the X factor for them, you start with Cat, because he's the guy that kind of makes the engine go. And then you hope that from him doing what he has to do, that the other guys just kind of come around and do the same thing.
We all thought it, but now we got a chance to really see it. The Wolves may be the 7th seed, but this is a roster that matches up very well with the Grizzlies team. Remember, these two teams split in the regular season 2-2, and in those games, the Wolves put up big games offensively, averaging an offensive rating of 119, shooting 46% from the field, 39 from the arc. And remember, this was a Grizzlies team that it wasn't just a one-sided, unbalanced team, right, with the league's number 2 offense. No, they owned the 6th best defense in the NBA. So after allowing 130 points to the Wolves in Game 1, I fully expect them to come out and have a better game plan for stopping Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns after they put up collectively 65. And if you're a Wolves fan, I think you should feel okay with that because that leaves the door open for D'Angelo Russell. Remember, D'Lo averaged 31.7 assists in those 4 games against Grizzlies in the regular season. The guy shot 56% from the floor, 46% from 3. So I know he had a quiet game 1, but with the impact Ant and Towns had, you have to expect the Grizzlies to make a serious adjustment. And I just got a feeling D'Lo is going to capitalize and bounce back with the big game tonight, because if he's anything like he's been against the Grizzlies earlier this year, they're going to have their hands full with the Wolves' big 3 and put a lot of pressure on them this game. Keep your eyes on D'Angelo Russell. He's my X factor for tonight's game matchup. So there's our X factors. Now, Reggie, flipping gears for a second, what's one storyline or key to the game maybe you think's just maybe not getting enough attention? You think it's going to have a bigger impact on the game than maybe people recognize? Something maybe not talked about enough that you think could low-key have a decision and impact in who wins tonight's game?
All right. So this is not something that people are just like not talking about. People are talking about it, but I think it's interesting. So on Sunday night, Ja Morant posted this video from Last Dance when Michael Jordan was in his locker and he had the bat in his hand and the cigar in his mouth, and he was just like, if you could talk smack, when it's 0-0, then then you're about something. But if when you got the lead and you're talking smack, and he's just going through those things, and I'm like,
interesting.
I'm like, okay, Ja, like what message are you trying to send there? Like I'm trying to understand. And so I think what's going to be interesting is how he comes out and kind of motivates the Grizzlies in that next game. To kind of, I don't know, play with a little bit more of an edge. And I just want to see how the Timberwolves kind of respond to that. Cause I don't know. That's just, anytime you post Mike,
it's Mike. You're sending a message, right? You're setting the tone,
right? You're trying to set the tone at least. And so I think, it's going to be on the Wolves to come out and play with some more of that pride to kind of, offset a little bit of that, that energy that Ja's going to come out on. A couple other storylines that I also kind of want to bring up is the play of the Grizzlies bench as opposed to the Timberwolves bench. Like,
no doubt, yeah.
The Wolves bench played about as well as you probably want to see them play in game 1. Can they replicate that? And also, it's like Memphis was kind of celebrated a little bit coming into this series of kind of having a better bench. And they didn't necessarily play how maybe many expected them to play. And I also think that another storyline is who guards Cat. Because Steven Adams was almost barbecue chicken in game 1. Like dude was a little barbecue chicken back there. Cat was eating him up. And it's so interesting because Jaren Jackson Jr. has 7 blocks. But he's much more athletic than Steven Adams. And I'm wondering, they put him on Vanderbilt, which I'm like, whatever. I don't think you're looking at Vando as just all this crazy offensive production. So I'm wondering if they decide to employ JJJ on Cat in this game and see just what that does for them. So those are some of the storylines I'm looking at.
Yeah, some really good under-the-radar storylines. I love that you brought up the Ja Morant kind of social media, throwing up Mike, sending that energy, maybe a little message, because for me, it's so cliche, but the key word for Minnesota when it comes to game 2 is poise. After pulling off that game 1 upset, the Wolves have to be prepared, again, for Memphis to come out with this added level of urgency, this intensity in order for them to tie up the series. Because if they fall behind, the Wolves, that is, they can't get flustered. They've proved in game one that they belong in the series and that they should have confidence in their game plan. But as a young team, it's going to be vital for them to keep their composure, regardless of what Memphis throws at them. Clean playoff basketball. Hit your free throws, create turnovers, take care of the ball. Just play your game and trust that your talent more times than not is going to win out versus their talent for 4 quarters, no matter the ebbs and flows of the game, because it's so easy for a young, inexperienced team to let their emotions and the surroundings get the best of them during the ups and downs, the roller coaster of a playoff game. And that's where I really think Coach Finch has not only had a huge impact on the regular season, but now you're seeing it carrying over to the playoffs as well. Yeah. Which, if you're a Wolves fan, you got to be awfully excited that the team finally seems to have the right kind of teacher, mentor to develop all this talent, the glue to put these puzzle pieces together well enough and see it manifest finally in some playoff wins around here. So that's super exciting. I will say this too, as far as an under the radar storyline coming into tonight's game. We talked a lot about momentum on yesterday's show. Who can grab some momentum early on in this season and ride that wave? Remember, heading in, the Grizzlies had all the momentum, right? Second best record in the NBA, won 19 of their last 22 games in Memphis. But all of a sudden, Reggie, they've lost 2 straight. And the Wolves, they've won 5 of their last 7. So it just feels like the Wolves may be putting it all together right at the right time heading into the rest of the playoff series. So regardless of what happens in game 2, the Wolves will head home to Minnesota with at least a split. And you already know, looking ahead to game 3 should be awesome, an electric atmosphere in Minneapolis, which will be the first playoff game at the Target Center. You'll be there since 2018 and just the third since 2004, that KG era. It feels like a long time for these Minnesota Timberwolves fans. The Wolves are 7-point dogs once again in this one. Tip off 7:30 Central. You know, Reggie and I will be here tomorrow to break it all down. Remember, 7 and 8 seeds, they're combined 0-36 in the playoffs since 2013. I keep saying it. I can't get over that stat. It's just unbelievable. 0-36. Wow. All right. Coming up, I'm putting Reggie through the gauntlet with what does it mean. But first, let's go around the rest of the NBA, circle in with a closer look on what's happening in the rest of the playoff matchups, starting in Philly. Remember, some experts had Toronto as their upset special, but now after getting throttled by double digits in back-to-back games, plus losing rookie star Scotty Barnes, the Raptors are reeling. The Raptors will try to flush these first 2 games out of their system, use this home field advantage tomorrow night. But Reggie, will it be too little too late for the 5-seed Raptors, who've kind of dug themselves in a big hole early in this series against the 76ers?
Yeah, man, I think that thing's over, man. I think
it's toast.
Yeah, it's funny because you got Joel Embiid talking to Nick Nurse, the Raptors head coach, telling him to stop complaining. He didn't use that word, but he told him to stop complaining so much. Like, they're just like beating them down, man. And it's interesting because Philly has a lot to prove this playoff season.
They do. They really do.
They traded for Harden. They, talked about how much he's like the missing piece to their puzzle and all that. And Harden's been just okay. He started that first month and he was like, oh, wow, like, okay, this is James Harden. He's back. And he's kind of leveled off a little bit. And so I think what's interesting to see is them putting it all together at the right time with Doc. There's a lot of pressure on Doc as well
no doubt. Good point.
To really kind of like show and prove like his mettle as a head coach, even with his level of experience. But with a team as talented as the 76ers, I think they're expected to beat teams like Toronto and kind of do what they're doing. I don't think I expected them to like beat them down like this, but with a team as talented as the Sixers are, like that's something that it shouldn't surprise you because like they have the talent to win the East if they can put it all together. But trying to get through all these teams, like the East is stacked. And so I think, them beating Toronto would give them a lot of confidence moving forward in the next series. But I think this series is toast.
Yeah, I think she's toast. Throw some butter and jam on that, baby.
Strawberry?
Yeah. Oh, got to. Always
Yeah.
got to.
Okay.
The most anticipated matchup of round one was always going to be the Nets and the Celtics. Game one didn't disappoint. Kyrie and Durant. They thought they did enough anyways to take game one, but it was Jason Tatum's buzzer beater that helped the Celtics.
How awesome was
Hold
that,
on.
man?
Oh, unbelievable. Go on. Up 1-0. So Reggie, this was the round one series everyone wanted to see heading into the playoffs, and now we know why. Don't let that 2-7 seed fool you, just like this Wolves matchup with the Grizz. These two teams are so talented and so evenly matched. It just feels like every game, it's just going to be an ESPN Classic coming down to the last shot. Plus, by the way, you got some off-the-court drama between Kyrie Irving and the Celtics crowds going on. How do you see the rest of this series playing out, and what do you love so much about these two teams matching up?
You know, it's interesting talking about Kyrie and the fans. Like, we've heard it for years that the Boston fans are just a next level, like
ruthless,
otherworldly, like, you know, just spitting out all kind of disrespectful stuff. Like, they take their sports very seriously up there. Like sports are live, breathe, die by up in the New
Blood,
England
sweat,
area.
tears.
Yeah,
no
and so it's interesting because Kyrie was once beloved. I mean, he told them at center court that he was coming back. He wanted to stay a Celtic, and then he left. And it's just funny. It's like, man, they can love you so hard, but they can also hate you so hard as well. And he's kind of seeing that other side of that. And I think it's kind of whack that, you know, don't get so personal with these criticisms of these players. Like they're people too. Just come on, man. It's a game, you know. Like I know it's important to you, but like don't be coming at Kyrie all like sideways, like it's sweet, you know, because a lot of y'all ain't about that life. Let's be honest. Like you sitting there, you know, you in the protection of your seat, like Kyrie won't come up there and jump at you. You know what I mean? Like you just never know with this guy. But anyway, switch it to the on the court stuff. I think the weird thing about the Nets being the 7th seed is they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Like no team boasts those two level of players and considers themselves an underdog at anything. You got two NBA champions on one roster. And I think what's interesting is like they're going to give the Nets. I thoroughly think that this Nets Celtics series is going to go to 7 games.
I do too. Yeah.
When it comes down to the last bucket like that, like I thoroughly see that. The Celtics have gone through some things. They've been battle tested in years past in the playoffs, and so they're not scared. They ain't scared.
No, sir.
And so I think what's cool about it is like they're playing up to their potential, and you know you're going to get the best out of Kyrie and KD anytime they step on the court. And so I'm just so interested to see how game 2 plays out because like I think the Nets are going to probably take it. And then we're just going to keep going back and forth until we get to 7 games. Like that's just what I see from it. There's so much talent on the court. And, you know, outside of the Wolves and the Grizzlies, I think that series is probably the most entertaining to watch.
Yeah, Reggie, you know I picked the Nets in this one, so it was a heartbreaker for me to watch that game 1, but I'm not swaying on this Nets final prediction. If they can win this series somehow, some way, I think the confidence and momentum on their side would be enough for them to beat anyone all the way to the chip. Outside of your Minnesota Wolves, if you only have time to watch one NBA playoff game this week, you got to make it this one. Game 2 tonight, tip-off 6 p.m. on TNT. Okay, last one, talking NBA playoffs. Golden State Warriors managed to contain Nikola Jokic and throttled the Nuggets by double digits twice now with a commanding 2-0 series lead. And that's, by the way, Reggie, with their best player, Steph Curry, out of the starting lineup and just coming off the bench. So the Warriors seem to be turning it up in a big way in the playoffs. Just how dangerous is this team, not only in the rest of this series, but maybe in the rest of the playoffs as a whole?
Dude, they're the challenger to the Phoenix Suns for the Western Conference. Like, you got Steph Curry coming off the bench, best bench player of all time.
Right.
34 points off the bench last night. Like, it's kind of ridiculous to be having the luxury to have a guy like that come off the bench and just cook up like that. Like, the dude is incredible. And it's just like, how's that for a 6-man? And I think what's interesting is I think the Nuggets are a 10-piece, like McDonald's special with barbecue sauce. Like it's over. Like they're cooked and they're getting eaten up. Like they just can't match up with the talent and the firepower of Golden State. They don't have Jamal Murray. They don't have Michael Porter Jr. Like, who do they have other than Jokic? Like, he can't. You see, he's like fighting mad. Got himself ejected last night.
Just
like
wild. Yeah,
it's crazy. Like, he's like, look, man, I'm fighting. I can't do any more than I'm doing to will this team to a W. Like, they may sneak one win in there, just because they're a professional basketball team as well. But like, when you got Chef Curry sizzling like that, freaking Jordan Poole is going to make himself a lot of money this offseason.
Good point.
The dude is coming into his own. And when they employ this new school death lineup with Curry, Poole, Thompson, Draymond, like, that's scary, man. Like, it's not as scary of a death lineup is when they had KD and Iguodala in there. Like that, that was a legendary death lineup. But like, when they small ball these guys and you got 3-4 guys that can just shoot a three just out of nowhere and just kind of kill you like that, like, just watch out, man.
Nickel and diming you to the death. I mean, just chipping away, man. Just brutal. Nuggets look to rebound back at home Thursday night in Game 3. They desperately need it. Tip-off for that game Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. Time has come. My favorite part of the show, where I put Reggie on the hot seat covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports, called What Does It Mean? Let's jump right into it. First up, Reggie, we called the Twins bats out yesterday on the show with Byron Buxton.
They must have heard us.
Yeah, they had in the lineup. They must have tuned in and listened, because they put up 8 runs against the Red Sox yesterday, helping them split the series 2-2. What does it mean for guys like Jorge Polanco, Kyle Garlick, who just got caught up, as the Twins try to make do with Buxton on the DL as they head to Kansas City for their series against the Royals tonight?
First of all, every dish, every good cook knows that every dish is just a little bit better with some garlic. Every dish.
I learned that the hard way a few years ago. You're right. You're right.
Just put a little garlic in there.
Anything and everything. Yes.
I mean, he starts off the game with the home run. Like, see you later. I think what's cool is seeing guys have production who are not Carlos Correa, who are not Sanchez, and not Buxton. Like, those are the guys that were expected to kind of be the catalyst for this team offensively. And when you have the bats producing at a level like that, where you got Kepler, helping score runs, and Polanco 4 RBI, like, that's pretty inspiring. Like, that's pretty, like, encouraging for their efforts. And it's cool to see, but it's always about sustainability, right? Like, can they keep it going? And I think going into this series with the Royals, like, they're a team, like, it was tough seeing how the Twins started the season, because they started the season against some of who many, believe will be some of the best teams in baseball this year.
Right.
And it's like, now they're kind of coming down and playing some teams around their level who are, trying to figure it out just like them. And I think this series against the Royals kind of presents an opportunity against a divisional opponent to just kind of like flex a little bit, kind of show, like, these bats are not a fluke. Like, we're going to come in and we're going to bring it night in and night out. And I expect them to be able to hit against the Royals as well, because there's a lot of questions with the Royals as far as their pitching staff. And it just kind of brings, Garlic is playing with house money right now. Like, just come in and rake. Do your, like, don't think about anything else. Just come in focused on base hits and, getting on base. Like, that's your goal. And it's like I said, when you don't have Correa and Buxton and Sanchez maybe doing the bulk of the load, and you can still get these other guys involved and they can still carry the team with the bats, like, I think that's very, very encouraging.
That schedule, man, relentless, just unbelievable to start out the gate. Maybe the best thing to happen to him, because now, like you mentioned, again, things are going to start to come back down to even a little bit more when it comes to the talent that they're going to be playing. Let's stick with the Twins. They got a solid outing from Dylan Bundy getting into the 6th inning. He allowed just one run against the Red Sox. But overall, the pitching staff, we know it from top to bottom. It's just been up and down, a little inconsistent. What does it mean? And what have you seen, Reggie, from the Twins pitching so far that had major questions heading into the season?
I think it means that we can keep a level of optimism.
I like that.
So Joe Ryan in his last start was phenomenal. 80 pitches, 62 of them, strikes, awesome. and it's like, he could have gone another inning. Especially considering that the bullpen came in and just kind of gave up all those runs after his wonderful effort. But I think what you're seeing at the start of this rotation is guys like Joe Ryan, Dylan Bundy. Sucks that Sonny Gray, had to hit the injured list with that hamstring. But, then you add in a guy like Chris Archer with a lot to prove. These guys have a lot to prove. And I think it means that they are going to give their best effort night in and night out. And that could be a really good thing for the Twins. They signed these guys that, have had a little bit of rough times, over the last few seasons. And they're trying to kind of, reclaim their greatness in a way, if you will.
Yeah, a lot of prove-it deals.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of prove it. Yep.
And they're proving it. I'm interested to see how Chris Archer looks in his second start. Because what Dylan Bundy has showed is that he can be someone who can be an anchor in this starting rotation so far. It's really early, and so we don't want to make any conclusions drawn from just two good outings, but they are encouraging outings from Bundy, and I would like to believe that Joe Ryan is going to continue to grow as a pitcher, and he's going to get a little bit longer of a leash as time goes on. And I think what is, kind of considered a weakness, if you will, of this team could become a strength with some guys that are just trying to prove themselves.
Yeah, great point there, because, we have no choice. We got to take this day by day. So it's easy for us to have knee-jerk reactions, quick reactions after every game. But my gosh, Reggie, this is just such a long season, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's easy for us to just have these quick reactions, jump to conclusions, as you said. But let's just, take a step back here, let the dust settle, give this team and ball club a few weeks to kind of find their footing and chemistry, and let this whole thing play out. Because, again, like you mentioned, a lot of prove-it kind of deals, and that doesn't mean there's not talent. There's some serious talent in this pitching staff.
Absolutely.
It's just who's going to shake out here at the bottom and become those 2 or 3 starters that you can depend on going into the second half of the season. All right, last one. What does it mean with Reggie on the hot seat? You knew I had to throw an NFL draft question your way. It's just 9 days away. We're getting closer and closer, and more experts now, Reggie, they're connecting some dots with LSU cornerback Derek Stingley, who we've talked about a lot on this show, and the Minnesota Vikings for a variety of reasons. However, after a great pro day and now his stock is rising, what does it mean for the Vikings if Stingley isn't even an option anymore with the 12th pick, as draft gurus like Mel Kiper and others saying he could now go in the top 10 picks?
Oh, yeah. You got some teams that are in the top 10 that have their quarterback already. And so they're just looking to bolster their team.
Jets at 10, Washington at 11. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
I think right there, one of those two teams, I think, is probably where Stingley probably goes. If he does,
it makes sense.
Not fall, but if he does come down and Minnesota's on the clock and he's still on the board, then you put the pick in yesterday.
Right.
You're
sprinting.
You're sprinting over. You're making the announcement of the pick for Roger Goodell.
Yeah, right.
Right. You're like, hey, Roger, excuse me, I'm gonna let you finish. Like real Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish, but this is the greatest draft pick of all time. So, but no, I think what's interesting is, and we've talked about this before on the show, but if Stingley is not there, don't reach for a guy. Take the best player available, or man, make yourself open for business, because it's like, look, if you can't get the guy that your heart desires, then trade back to a guy, to put yourself in position to take a guy that you are still pretty fond of, but that you can take, maybe at a lower pick, and maybe just get a little bit more draft capital for yourself, for your team. Like Kwesi made the comment of trying to build for the future and the present at the same time, which is just kind of confusing if you think about it.
Right.
But, that allows you, if you trade back, that allows you to be able to bolster the talent of the roster with some young guys. And help supplement a little bit of that.
Exactly. I'm a big draft guy. Trading back is always option A for me, because there's no sure thing in this draft. And also, especially in this draft class, you can find guys in round 2 and round 3. Eric Kendricks, round 2 linebacker, Pro Bowler. Daniil Hunter, 3rd rounder. Everson Griffin, how far you want to go back? I mean, you can find guys on day 2 and day 3. And I love moving back and just gaining more ammo. And when you got the 12th pick, it could be a prime spot, some serious real estate for a team like we've talked about on the show. The Steelers at 20, maybe moving up to get a quarterback. The Saints all of a sudden got 2 first-round picks. Maybe they want to package and move up. But Stingley would be tempting for sure, and some other guys like Kyle Hamilton. But the Vikings are now also rumored to be really fond of Trent McDuffie, the 3rd cornerback right behind Stingley from Washington, and they think they may be able to get him after moving down. So I just love the fact that they're discussing the real possibility of trading back, still getting a great player at the late teens or early 20s, and then gaining some more ammo. So lot to discuss.
Here's the thing too about the draft that is so interesting is like, it is such an inexact science, and teams do what they have to do for the betterment of their team in the moment. And it's just so funny because we always have this like revisionist thing where we go back and we look at the draft and we're like, wow, this person was on the board and they passed on.
How did you guys miss this?
It's like, come on, man. Like, that's so like low-hanging fruit right there, because it's just like back like in the moment. We look at these players and we do our due diligence. We do our homework on these guys, and we try to make the best decision possible in the moment. But it's just like, you can, even the most can't miss guys sometimes in the draft have been a miss.
Absolutely.
And
happens
it's just
all
like,
the time.
Yeah. And it's just like, look, man, you can never, really, really, truly get these things right sometimes. And it's just like, but I think what is right is not reaching for a player at 12 and just kind of letting the board come to you for best player available. And that's really the best thing that you can do in this draft, because like then that's when you look back and you're like, man, what did they do? They reached for that guy. That guy really wasn't even all that high rated, and they took him, kind of some of the stuff that the Raiders did under Mike Mayock.
Gosh. Yep.
It was just like, dude, that guy wasn't even on anybody's first round board, and you just took him with the 2nd pick. Like, what's going on? What are we doing?
Yeah.
But with the case of the Vikings, man, it's tough because they're going to be, fans are going to hold them accountable, and fans are going to be critical of what they end up doing on draft night. But it's just so tough to predict some of these things. But I guess that's why they get paid the big bucks, to be able to scout and make these decisions that, hopefully work out best for their football team.
Another reason, you just basically laid it out, why you trade back, it puts less pressure when you have an early pick. I mean, any of these top 10, top 12 picks, they're expected to come in and not only just start, but these 20, 21-year-olds are expected to start and be really good. So I think it just puts such an unfair expectation, especially on these young quarterbacks who I think should always sit for 1 year, their rookie year, and then come in and learn the speed and nuances of the game. But trading back, just another benefit, I think, of moving back. Takes a little bit of pressure off the expectations, early expectations of that draft pick. Draft just 9 days away. Reggie's getting me all excited, hot and heavy over here. Next week, we're going to have a lot of NFL draft segments coming your way during draft week. All right, Reggie, you survived the gauntlet once again. Join us tomorrow breaking down Game 2 playoffs with the Wolves and Memphis Grizzlies. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on Care 11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of the Locked On Sports Minnesota. He's Reggie. I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.